Stephanie Ruhle, NBC News senior business analyst, host of the 11th Hour, joins me now. Stephanie, can I just say that was a great interview, and I thought you pressed her on really important stuff. It was also, I just thought the whole thing was refreshingly substantive. This was you can say I don't like that policy or I do like that policy, but it really was about here, the earth we live in, the kinds of decisions you're going to make, and it wasn't pie in the sky stuff. So very, very well done job. Let me just start by saying that.
Okay, well, I'm just going to sit here and soak in those compliments, so we don't have to talk about anything else. But I think what you're actually complimenting is that it was a normal interview, Chris. That's actually what it was. It was a normal interview. It was a person running to be the president of the United States, and for 25 minutes, we talked about their vision and we talked about policy. And I think you just said it right there. At the end of the day, it's A-OK if you don't like her policies, right? She made it very clear. Yep. If you make over $400,000 a year, next year, when the individual tax cuts expire, she's going to raise your taxes. So if you're someone who just votes on that, well, then you know what you're doing. You don't want to vote for her. And I think that it's just that we're so desensitized in that so many interviews that we do, we're forced to cover so much lunacy or so much crazy or so much fact checking or get distracted by so many issues that aren't core policies that serve the American people. What you saw right there was just a sort of a classic interview with somebody running for president.
I thought the point that there's a number of really interesting exchanges. I thought the exchanges on tariffs was really interesting, particularly where you said, look, which is true. I think people think we live in this free trade era, which we do compared to previous. But there's also lots of tariffs on lots of stuff. Presidents have unbelievable unilateral authority to apply them. I remember George W. Bush doing this on aluminum and steel. I remember, obviously, Trump did it. Joe Biden, as you noted, he basically said, look, where are you? And I thought her answer was interesting, which is basically well, it kind of depends, right? But we're not going to throw up a 20% tariff around the whole country, which is not a serious idea.
But I think that's the important part, sort of the nuance, because I'm going to be honest. President Biden has tariffs in place. He's held a lot of Donald Trump's tariffs in place. And the White House doesn't like to talk about it. They don't like it when you ask them about it, because everybody has gotten in this zone of Trump's the tariff guy. We're not the tariff people. We're here on the other side. And what she did right there is kind of explain that it's complicated, right? We're a country of 330 million people. Our economy is complicated, right? In the same way, is the economy good or bad? It totally depends. So tariffs, if used in the right places, can work. And one could watch that and say, well, she didn't give a clear, direct answer. That's okay, because we are not talking about clear or direct issues.
The question about inflation and prices, this to me is it's sort of one of the most frustrating aspects of this campaign. The thing that people are 100% correctly, rationally, and understandably reacting to is 2 or 3 years of the highest rate of inflation we've had in a generation, which has been incredibly unpleasant. It spiked the prices of things. Things got more expensive. The issue, of course, is that period was basically born of the end of the pandemic and the supply crunch, and a combination of that and monetary policy has brought it down. So now you got this weird situation where both major party candidates kind of got to say what they're going to do to bring prices down, even though what everyone's reacting to is an issue that is a little bit in the past. You see what I'm saying? So she's got the price gouging thing, which I thought was a good answer, but in some ways, no one's really talking about the real thing.
It is a little bit in the past. And listen, lots of people are angry that grocery stores have made so much money and they shouldn't. And I'm not defending grocery stores, but we should remember when we're we need to put price controls on things. There are tons of businesses that are not high margin businesses. And there are lots of years when those industries are not making a ton of money. But what I find interesting, when she talks about looking into price gouging, people freak out and they're like, look, she's a socialist. I knew she was going to be a socialist. This woman is not a capitalist. And they bug out over it. Donald Trump this week was when I become president, look at the interest rates you're paying on credit cards. I'm going to cap that. There's no way they can do that. He's going full on.
A unilateral announcement of a 10% cap on credit card interest rates.
Free markets guys. Correct. When I call ride or die capitalists about this, they're like, oh, it's nonsense. He's just talk and talk. But when she says anything that even sniffs like it, they're like, see, she's a socialist nutball. So It's completely crazy, but you've got candidates that are trying to address an issue that has the American people angry, and the American people aren't thinking about what you just mentioned, which is remember where we came from,
right.
A pandemic.
Finally, let me just ask you this. I'm editorializing here, but I feel like the times that I've seen the vice president on her feet, which would be since she became the nominee, which would be, you know, the interview she did at CNN, some of the local interviews she's done, the things she did with Oprah, the debate, the interview with you, like, she's obviously quite adept. She's quite deft. She's quite fluid. It does seem to me like it would benefit them and benefit the public just at a deep substantive level to talk more about this stuff. Like, I feel like I learned something.
Okay, I think that 100%. Because what's crazy is that Donald Trump gets so much credit and has for the last 9 years of the fact that, you know, people have access to him and he says what he thinks and he just lets it rip. But much of what he says either doesn't make sense or it's not true. Yes. She actually was perfectly reasonable. And listen, there's some things she's not giving you a direct answer on because she's a politician.
Right.
But I agree with you that getting a chance to speak to her, getting for the American people to hear from her more. Right? Like, what do you do with the fact, if you're her campaign, when people hear over and over, I don't really know what her policies are, and they can say, well, look, we have this book and it has 82 pages. I guarantee there are people who watched tonight who went, oh, taxes only increase if you make over 400 grand, because there's all sorts of people like, well, my tax cut's going to run out. Maybe my taxes are going to go up next year. They're not really reading the 82-page plan. And so I think the more, and she doesn't necessarily have to do with us, the more she sits down, I mean, she's a great interview. I sat down with her for 25 minutes.
Yeah, go talk.
You might not have liked all of her answers, but she had one for every single question.
Well, that was great. I learned a lot. Excellent job, my friend. Stephanie Ruhle, thank you.